All right. Good morning. So first of all, Coach, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with me. I'm extremely humbled, first of all, as a student, as a father of two little girls, and it's it was super important to me that one, I obviously facilitate this assignment with a coach, but also that I get a female's perspective, because that has been just something that I've been very passionate about is wanting to grow women's sports from a male's perspective. And so I'm super humbled to have you join me here today and just kind of answer, a few questions that I have for you. So thank you again. If you could, just for the record, just state your name, and then your position here, your role.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Miles. And I didn't, how old are your girls?
So they're 2 years and 5 years old.
Sweet. All right. So
Yeah.
five is about to be soccer playing age.
Yeah,
So,
well, we started her actually already at round two. So
okay. All right.
she's got some fundamentals already and is enjoying it. And we're getting ready to get the 3-year-old, two going on 3-year-old into it. So
Does she like running, the 5-year-old?
the 5-year-old loves running.
All right. Then you're in the right
Loves
sport.
it. And
What was
she's
your sport?
I was a very successful football player. Then I played basketball and then I did some shot put as well. So in
Okay.
the state of
Awesome.
Oregon.
All right. So you got the background. Oh, I used to live in Portland for a while. So
Yep, that's hometown for me.
all right. I loved it there. I was there for 7 off seasons actually, and I played one season for the Thorns. So,
Awesome.
I got great friends up there. But okay, so my name is Becca Moros. I'm the head soccer coach here at the University of Arizona. Prior to being here, I'm about to finish my 4th year. So I came here right after COVID, and went straight into a fall season with the soccer team, and then just completed our fourth spring with a game on this past Saturday. So. Um, Really winding down for us now at this point. Prior to that, I spent 18 months coaching as an assistant coach for Gotham FC, the pro team in the NWSL in New Jersey. And
Okay.
then prior to that, I played 11 seasons professionally in two different leagues, as well as in a Japanese league for 2 years. And then I'm from New York originally. I went to Duke University, played there, captained the team there, graduated from Duke in 2007 when I started my pro playing career. I think that's probably a good short history.
Yeah, that was a great run through. So you obviously have tons of experience. You've probably seen it, heard it, done it at this point, within, the context of your career. So that's pretty awesome to hear. Um, can you share obviously kind of some favorite moments and memories of, whether that was playing time or just within your coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, from playing, you always remember your championship teams, your successful teams.
Hmm.
Not so much because of the championships, but because of how much went right in those environments, how process driven you were, how focused day to day. Um, Obviously, winning and being successful creates positive energy, but I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes based on the culture of the team, the character of the team, probably all the way up to management that is done well. It's not that you're not going to make mistakes or that everything is done well, but I think those environments, um, the winning is the memory or the trophy or whatever, but there were so many good things going on that I think led to that success. So those are definitely strong memories for me. And then as a coach, I don't know if there's a specific memory like that, but I love the moments when players come up to you and go, "That's what we were working on yesterday," and they
Yeah,
they know they got better and they come tell you about it.
absolutely.
And I think those are the most they're kind of like the culminating moment of these very satisfying interactions around helping people achieve their goals, being very locked in and focused on that aspect and moment. It could be very simple, very small. and then seeing them recognize that they've got it now. It's theirs now.
Hmm.
Even if it maybe isn't there all the time and you still got to practice. They did something they weren't necessarily doing before or weren't aware of in the way that they're now aware of it and focused on it. And I think those are really just such great moments. They feel so good for both parties, and it's really, that collaboration and feeling of success on both sides, and a shared moment like that's really special. So, and players don't always tell you those moments, so it's when they do, and you get to realize, okay, like we did something together.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of gonna say, how does it kind of make you feel to have them, come to you, um, with that conversation? Because that's true. And even in my experience, I didn't always go to my coaches, when I was feeling that way. And so it's kind of nice to hear that perspective from you that that is something that you are doing together, that connection that you're having, with your player is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
What
Yeah.
is something kind of playing off of that? What is kind of a more of a difficult moment or an incident that you kind of faced, either playing or coaching, that you kind of remember?
I would say the toughest moments, are when you can't seem to find good communication or collaboration or and you don't feel like you're working together. You almost feel like you're working against each other. And
Mhm.
most of the players you won't have those relationships with, but in a team of 30 something players, you're going to have some people that you have more struggle getting to that productive, positive place with. And some people are come from, different backgrounds and they will struggle with things differently just because they've had different experiences, and so your team isn't always going to struggle with the same stuff or relate to you on the same stuff or relate to each other on the same stuff.
Mhm.
And some people, athletes, live with a very big chip on their shoulder, and that's one of the things that makes them good, but it also makes them difficult to work with. And so those moments are the ones where you're really struggling to figure out, okay, how am I gonna build a collaborative relationship with this person or just be what they need,
Sure.
and not need a relationship that you can feel like you're working together, but just try to figure out what it is, that they want you to be for them. And it might not be what you're really good at. So those
Right.
those are definitely the toughest moments.
Certainly.
And they take up a lot of your energy, even though it's one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. What potential role and impact can coaches have in a young person's life?
It's massive.
Hmm.
I tell you, one of my most influential coaches is still, the coach that I had as a little kid. Uh,
Mm.
and he's still a mentor of mine. He came out, watched training for a week earlier this year. And we hop on the phone, we'll chat for an hour and a half straight about soccer. But he probably started coaching me when I was 7.
Sure.
And took me from the this sort of town team and said, "Hey, to my mom, he said, "Hey, you gotta bring her to train with my boys because she just moves like a soccer player." And so he's really the reason that I think I developed the skills and the fundamentals and the understanding of the game. And his passion is probably where my passion comes from. My parents weren't athletes and definitely not sports people, soccer people, or anything like that. So he's really, my soccer dad. And I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of pro athletes have an early figure that helped them develop that passion, and just joy for what they were doing at an early age. And I think that that kind of fuels them, and sticks with them through all stages. So I think coaches can be, absolutely instrumental, and be really impactful figures,
And so
in a
you would
player.
say it's more about having that early on relationship than necessarily having the skills and the athleticism. It's that connection that really has kind of carried you, I guess, or and it made you feel kind of I guess the that impact that a coach can have on a young player.
Yeah, and I think depending on, what your passion and commitment ends up being. Uh,
Hmm.
your talent is totally relevant,
Yeah,
but you have to have a baseline talent for any level you get to.
absolutely.
And you also have to have, depending on how long you play for, but there's certain athletic qualities that lead to durability that people don't talk about. We could talk about speed, we can talk about these other things, but your genetics play a factor into whether you're durable and can train as hard as you want every single day. Every athlete knows people who were talented enough but didn't necessarily make it because, your body breaks down.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these things are sort of have to come together in the right mix. And I'm not sure you have to have the same mix, but I do think an early figure that makes you fall in love with what you're doing is probably going to end up being a factor in the fact that you develop that passion and that you keep reapplying yourself and you enjoy the struggles and the challenges. And if you have all that and the requisite talent is there and, you get lucky with injuries and health and things like that, then the sky's the limit. But it's every step of the way, you have to kind of meet that baseline talent level for that step. And whether it's a recreational team, to high school team, to college team, Division two, three, one, Power Four, moving on after, like these are all like different levels that you still have to kind of hit those benchmarks to get there. But
Mhm.
without that passion and desire, then you probably never make the decisions that would develop you to your talent.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. Thank you. How has coaching changed over time, especially in like generational, change?
I don't know for sure. I was playing up until I was 34. I'm almost 40. So I was teammates with players that, when I took this job, I was teammates with players that were a year older than the players I was
Yeah.
coaching. So um, I was those players seem very normal to me because every step of my career, you have the new players coming in,
Hmm.
and generations kind of mix all together. And so I think I had, a nice place to start from in terms of interacting with these younger players, knowing a lot about them and sharing, team space with them and um, performing together and things like that. But I do think, the communication piece is really big. The authoritarian coaching styles out, that doesn't work. And maybe over time it's worked less and less and less and less and really doesn't work with this generation. The amount of media that's available. So, you can teach a player something, but if they're motivated, they can find that same something somewhere else,
Hmm.
Whereas when I was growing up, if your coach didn't have it, you weren't getting it,
Getting it.
So they have the opportunity to know a lot. And the game has soccer in particular, but I'm sure every sport and every sport coach would say the same thing. But the players can know so much more and study the game on their own and watch their streaming and replays and live everything and highlights. Um, so they can really, build their own base of knowledge without you.
Yeah.
And you want to encourage that too. The ones who don't have potential to be behind because the ones
Hmm.
who are really motivated are doing it. So the level of the game has pushed farther, which means your understanding of the X's and O's and material in order to have the respect of the players that you're coaching is important.
Yeah.
Um, because they can know. Players always knew, they always knew when you didn't know what you're talking about. But now it's even more so because they can know a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
That they're not going to get from you. They're going to get from the culture and media available to them about their sport and teams. So yeah, I think that's a major difference and a way that coaching has changed over time. Outside of that, I still feel like you ask someone with 10 years more experience than me, and they'll have even more answers, because they
Yeah.
saw maybe they coached my generation and things like that. But some basic things that people used to do, punishment is running or fitness, like that's completely taboo and it's really not respected or utilized. And some of those things used to be very standard. Oh, you're not paying attention? Run a lap. Oh, you can't get it right? Run a lap. Or, we're doing stadiums or like that stuff is so out now. So, um, and probably for good reason.
Certainly. Do you
Yeah.
so kind of moving on here a little bit? I'm sure that kind of plays into the relationships that you try to create with the athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can create good communication, uh,
Hmm.
and just talk in general about anything. It doesn't have to be about sport. If you create great lines of communication, you're going to have a better relationship. And, players are really going to understand that you want the best for them and the best for the team. And so if that messaging is really consistent and, you know, you do those things, you'll have a better experience coaching and they'll have a better experience playing for you. Um, I do think being able to push a player is a really important part of being a coach. So you have to build that trust and they have to know that you really want the best for them. But everything also has to be in a team context because soccer is a team sport and the media often just shows one superstar or one this or one that.
Yeah.
Um, but to be successful and to win a lot, you have to be a very cohesive team. So finding a way to build that, you know, relationship in a way where they know you want the best for them and you want the best for them within what's best for the team and that buy-in from them is very important so that you're able to push them and then your passion they have
Hmm.
to know you love what you're doing and because that trickles down to the team and being a bunch of people who are somewhat invested is not good enough. You need to be a group of people who are fully invested, love what you're doing, love showing up, love seeing each other, and just interacting and things like that. So,
Absolutely. Do you think those tools are what you use to kind of motivate like different kinds of athletes?
yeah, and when you know people and you interact, I think you're just human context starts to override anything soccer wise that you're thinking about or
Yeah.
coaching wise. You just know the person. And when you do and you interact better, I think the coaching part just goes hand in hand with it. There's always, like I said, some players who it's just more difficult to connect with, or they've maybe based on past experiences, they have trouble trusting coaches, or they just and those are the ones where you're really scratching your head and scrambling and maybe utilizing more of your coaching team and letting somebody else sort of spearhead building that relationship. So as long as that trust is building somewhere, then we're getting honest communication back and forth and can do a good job by each other. So that's really important. The medical team is super important, our athletic trainers, as far as building good relationships and trust and communication, because they have very different um, conversations and culture in the training room and things like that. So they can bring a lot to the table. So um, all of that stuff is very collaborative and um, whatever we can do to create the best relationships for the players is what we're going to try to do.
Absolutely. So kind of thinking about, different teams, team dynamics, the roles that players play, kind of, do you select like team captains and kind of what are those roles? Because I know when I played, like, at some point we selected a team captain, but it was, almost partially through or towards the end of seasons once you actually figure out how that player really developed and how they helped different athletes and different players throughout the season to where you define them more as that captain. So I don't know, do you pick somebody kind of from the beginning of their season or is it more of a progress as well?
Yeah, so far we've kind of named captains at the end of the spring, so
Mm,
prior to the fall start of season. So we're getting ready to do that now. There's a clear
okay.
leadership group that kind of emerges amongst the upperclassmen almost every spring, where you see which upperclassmen have those sort of leadership instincts or interest and connect with people, communicate, lead warm-up type activities, or kind of chatting with lots of different people, not
Yeah.
just one clique or pocket of friends. You can see on the field the communication, who's leading on the field, who's trusted by their teammates in that way as well. And then as we do our exit meetings, we get feedback from players, just from a general sense. They don't vote or anything like that, but it's like who's been a good teammate this year. And we do that twice a year. We did that at the end of the fall, and we also do that at the end of the spring about who's been a good teammate, who's shown good leadership qualities,
Hmm.
and that's a face-to-face conversation with the coaches, so we get to hear them talk about those people very specifically. So occasionally you get someone in who's like, "Oh, I think this person's a great leader," and their answer is like, "Well, basically they're my best friend," and so like those things get thrown out, but the ones
Yeah.
where people are really giving you feedback, it can either solidify your thoughts and what you've observed as a coaching staff. We also ask the medical team, we ask the academic team, so we get feedback on all of the people that we're thinking about elevating into a captain role. This year we are in a unique position because we have 5 or 6 players who have demonstrated very good
Wow.
leadership skills, which
That's
is
amazing.
awesome. We've
Yeah.
definitely never had that like that. So as we're trying to figure out what's the best leadership team, and then how to decide to do captains, because that's too many people, I think, for captains, but to involve all of them in leadership roles would be really important. So yeah, but we are very it's very important, and leaders, captains, and I think people with upperclassmen status, because of the experience that comes with, they've seen different
Hmm.
things, and they have a sense of urgency because their career is finite. Freshmen tend to not really understand that. But upperclassmen feel that clock ticking a little bit, like, oh, I only have 2 more tries, I only have one more shot at this. Um, and so I think that urgency is important in that leadership role. But they make or break you. The games that you aren't playing well, but you need to win anyways,
Yeah.
they are the ones that win those games for you. The consistency to show up and do well and not play down to a lower team's level or to play above themselves against your best competition of the year. That's your upperclassmen and your leaders. So the team will kind of go with them, you
No,
know.
absolutely. Thank you for that. How do you describe your leadership role? Like not necessarily the role, but like the methods, the styles that you use, to kind of project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big into leading by example, and that starts with work rate always. So, like, if
Hmm.
I will pick up cones, balls, it doesn't matter. If there's a job to be done, I'm gonna be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because that's kind of that blue collar, gritty, humble kind of attitude that you want from your players, no matter what. Uh,
Hmm.
and so I think that's important. I also don't mind any of that stuff. I like the grind. That's how I got here. So none of that stuff bothers me. I don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't pick up a bag or cones or balls or, cups, dirty cups someone leaves behind. Like, I'll do it all. So, uh,
Hmm.
do I want to be the one doing all that stuff? No. Do I want everybody to take care of their own stuff? Sure. But it's never going to happen perfectly. And I want someone to pick my stuff up if I forget one day. So,
Yeah.
that's really important to me. Um, and then I think, leading with passion. So everybody knows that you love what you're doing, and you
Yep.
love being on the field with them, even in the tough moments, you love it. Um, and I think that that's contagious. And I like that. I like being around other people who are passionate. So I
Hmm.
want to make sure I lead with that as well. We always trying to do the right thing. It might not be easy and it might not be right for everybody, but if it's the most right thing to do, then that's what we have to do because we're a team before we are individuals. And so whatever is the best thing we can do, we're gonna do. We're not gonna take a shortcut or do the easy thing or ever do the wrong thing. So, and we make mistakes and we own them and apologize for them and do all of that stuff because that's part of being human and that's part of being great is making mistakes. So,
Yeah.
and then we talk about that on the field. Like I design sessions intentionally so they will fail. And I tell them and I said that's how it is. Like you're not going to get any better if everything I put out here means success for you, then I'm not pushing you. So,
Sure.
um, you
I
know,
think
the,
that begs kind of an important aspect too. So like, with this leadership styles that you're using, have you seen, also like the the negative effect on it because you touched on players, from different backgrounds, different cultures, different learning styles, different ways of being coached, and being coachable. So, like, have you seen a negative side of your personalities, and your leadership style also contribute?
Um, I mean, the answer is definitely yes. I think that's where the other coaches are so important.
Mm,
We're really a
yeah.
team. Um, and all of our strengths could be a negative in a specific situation or with certain players or things like that. So as a team, I think our goal is always to do the best we possibly can. Um,
Hmm.
and then we've got to check and balance each other, right? So if anything is not great, then that has to be communicated in some way, with an opportunity to get better, but also recognizing that it might just be a different person's role today.
Yeah.
And so I think we're pretty good at that. I love the way, the other three coaches on the coaching team communicate, lead. Um, they're all self-starters. They all take their own initiative. They're all passionate about what they do and bring things to the table that I couldn't bring to the table. They have different relationships with the players for sure. Partly out of nature of the head coach, I get blamed for anything. So if anybody doesn't play, it's always my fault. Or if any, it doesn't matter that all of us met and I
Yeah.
might have been the one who wanted them to play, and the three other coaches said, "No, we think this player's earned it," and it's my fault. But it
Hmm.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think they do an awesome job. As far as the negatives I'm a pusher. I was a pusher as a player. I was ready to grind. I loved the process. So there was never I don't remember anything being, I got it. I'm there. It was always what's next.
Yeah.
So I think there are players on the team who want positive reinforcement and to always know that they did it. And I'm just thinking, what's next? All right,
Hmm.
great. Here's what's next. Like and so I think that that's something I always have to check myself on, and they check me. When we come into meetings, they'll tell me if they want more positive feedback, or they want to hear this thing or that thing. Um, and so that's always helpful from them when they communicate directly like that.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you. How do you prepare? How do you plan? How do you organize, for the season?
extensively. We plan season long. And then week to week. So we have a very robust shared document spreadsheets of loads per day, loads per week, loads season long, where are our red zones in the season where the players are going to be overloaded and recovery becomes priority one, not training, where are easier weeks where we know, okay, we've got extra training opportunities. That also goes with medical strength and conditioning. Where are we going to get in
Sure.
the gym? Like, how do we get the gym in without all that, fatigue in their legs affecting them in training or on game days? Because it's critical for the injury prevention piece. And then their recoveries go faster if they have enough strength work and things like that. So, where are we going to put film in during the week? How are we going to put film in? Since they all have classes and academics and they're very driven in the classroom, so their time is loaded up. And then just the training. So, what principles do we want to go through in the training week? Often whatever we plan gets changed because of the previous week's opponent and what the team showed or didn't show.
Yeah.
Or are we working really well at something and so we want to keep it going? We really want to lock it in so that it doesn't, take a step back the next week because we shifted our focus. So, yeah, it's a bunch of planning and then editing. Like you do all the planning up front and then your edits go a lot farther. So and then we have one of our assistant coaches, Philip Congleton. He came out of the pros. We coached together at Gotham 5 years ago. He was there for another 3.5 years under three other head coaches.
Hmm.
Sports scientist, and he has incredible background in sports performance, return to play, injury prevention, things like that. So having him on the coaching staff is huge for our planning. It just means that every soccer thing that we want to do he's got an eye towards what the right physical loading is or isn't.
Sure.
And sometimes you don't get it perfectly right, but you closer because of it.
And, you know, kind of connecting to that, do you do you feel that it's just so crucial and so important to plan and organize the way you do?
Yeah, because for the coaching staff, when we interface with the players, we have to know what we're doing.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of players at times, and so you need to have multiple voices communicating. Often, different coaches take the lead in different parts of a training session, so the players are getting different voices, different energy, things like that, which is important because you're working with different people with different personalities. So they may really enjoy one part of the session and different players are going to enjoy a different part of the session. So but it also allows us to observe. If I'm leading the session, I'm going to see different things than if Philip or Nat or Seba are leading something, then I can step back and observe, and the same goes for them. So that feedback, when we break it down at the end of training and we debrief as a coaching staff, we get different data points and impacts, and opinions, because we run training that way. But the most important thing is that we're all aware of the design, the principles we're trying to get across, what feedback the players need to hear, and can all be a part of that messaging and learning experience for them.
Sure. Thank you. How do you build positive relationships with parents, administrators, fellow coaches, and other um, other stakeholders, other people that are involved within your program?
Yeah, I mean, parents are an interesting one because it is a college team, so they're less
Yep.
involved than they were in the players' club careers.
Yeah.
But particularly the freshman year, I will interact with a parent as much as is needed, as much as is best for the student. Sometimes
Hmm.
they'll have trouble in school, or they'll have trouble figuring out dinner time because their parents used to do dinner time, or
Yeah.
somebody isn't putting themselves to bed because they're in a dorm and there's way too much fun stuff going on. So there's just real life things that sometimes the parents are really important support systems for the students and players. Um, but overall, by the end of the freshman year, I always communicate. I don't want to be communicating with your parents around really anything by your sophomore year. But sometimes it's scholarship stuff or things come out late or there's something academics is noticing and things like that. So if we can try to lock all those things in and have the players really adjusted to college life through the freshman year, then they're going to have a better sophomore and junior and senior year. So um, that's really the only times I'll interact with parents or around injuries. If a student gets injured and the parents are going to be involved in that process, hopefully. Yeah. And so administrators support people like our field grounds and maintenance crew, the academic team, medical, sports psych, nutrition. These guys all have huge impacts on how the program runs and the experiences of individual student athletes. One person may really utilize nutrition services and it makes a huge difference for them and the kind of difference that's not just performance based, but it's a day-to-day experience, right?
Yeah.
Of like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you providing for yourself? Are you eating enough? Are you eating the right things? Do you feel good? Um, and sports psych can be a part of that. Real things happen in their lives that are challenges that aren't just soccer or I'm not playing enough or, you know,
Mhm.
whatever. And our sports psych department is there for them in those situations, which sometimes having someone who's just an expert and their job is to sit and talk to you is just so key for their mental well-being and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But they also come out and do team building stuff with the team, so that's huge. And
Absolutely.
takes a weight off of our shoulders as coaches to try to figure out how best to communicate those messages. They have a different perspective, and do a really good job because they know what they're doing. And then the
No.
medical team, obviously, they're huge. I walk through the training room regularly. I think a lot of the trainers weren't used to that, but like in the pro culture, like that's where you find out how your team is doing. It's in the training room. So it's like I got to go down there. I got to find out how are we doing? How are we feeling today? Like, do we have
Mhm.
energy? Are we tired? Are we, is school picking up? Like, what's going on? And so I try to walk through the training room on a regular basis and touch base with the athletic trainers or the athletes that are down there taking care of their bodies, or pop into the gym and check in with our strength coach, because like that whole team affects the players, their individual experiences, and the culture of the actual, like the whole team, in a big way. And then administrators are, if they don't know what's going on in your program, and something doesn't go well, or you need something, or something is going really well, then you're kind of behind the eight ball, when important stuff happens. So they're really busy also and working with lots of teams. So making sure you have those touch points and you share the relevant stuff, good and bad, with them, so they really know where your program is at, is key. Because at some point you're going to need them for some reason. Maybe they got to sign off on something, or you need something in your facility, or some equipment breaks down that's really important, and whatever. It's going to be an administrator that's going to come through and figure out how to solve those problems for you. So, yeah, they do a really good job.
Oh, thank you. Those are wonderful answers, and I appreciate that insight. And so kind of a, you know, really loaded question here, I think, how do you think you create an inclusive, and safe environment, and kind of thinking and touching, on some of those issues of race, gender, religion, you name it.
Yeah, it's it is a tough subject, because a lot of times people are really hesitant to be direct around whatever it is that they're different. Whether you could be the majority, and somebody else is different, and so you're scared to say anything, or
Yeah.
do. I have experiences as um, a minority that I draw on for sure, and they're very helpful. And I can remember my moments of hurt in life. So those things are helpful, just to sort of give you an idea that people will feel different things than you feel, in
Hmm.
a moment, and you may not be able to relate or understand those things, or even know that it's happening. And so just being aware that there's a whole world of things that you just don't understand, or are out there, or experiences that are unique to an individual, is really important. And that overall people are very resilient, so they can have these things happen, or have these feelings, and then still see the good in other things, right? Like I remember having it, okay, this is not every day of my life, this is today, and what does it mean to me, and how I carry it with me, but also, it's not going to define me, and I'm gonna be the best version of myself, every day going forward. So, but that those are real challenges for people in doing that. And then also, I just played on such diverse teams. Like, I mean, I played until I was 34. I mean, it's like my college team was one thing, from all over the country, but the pro teams I played on were just incredibly diverse. And the locker room and the sport is what brings you together, and the dumb stuff that happens in the locker room probably does the most for bringing you together, than any of the moments, on the field.
Yeah.
Um, so just making sure that